Thank you, thank you. So yes, my name is Chloe Lewis. I'm here today with these wonderful people to talk about NFTs as building blocks. There's the meme going around, of course, that we're just all talking about JPEGs, of course. But these JPEGs are starting to be used as a standard and securing a lot of value, being used by many different projects, and we have a wonderful assortment of people here that use NFTs in a variety of ways. So the first question I have for everyone here is, who are you guys? What do you guys do? And potentially, what part of building NFTs do you work on? So we can start at the end with Jimmy. Let's go ahead.
Hey everyone, I'm Jimmy with a 1.eth. I am an avid NFT collector myself. I've been collecting NFTs since 2017 when CryptoKitties launched. And then I also started building in the space in 2019, launched Avastars in 2020, and then last year began working on our platform for our minting platform, which is an API called Nameless. And you may be familiar with some of the projects we've done, like VFriends, and Natively Digital with Sotheby's, and then most recently we did a really great project in New York City called Flyfish Club, which funded a restaurant based off an NFT sale, and holding those NFTs gives you membership and the right to go and have an omakase meal on an occasional basis, and you can lease and rent out your membership so other people can go enjoy that. So I've gone from collector to builder, and I still am a very avid collector in the space.
Very cool. Thank you very much. We'll just keep going down the line, so feel free.
Yeah, sure. My name is Alex, and I'm a co-founder and CTO at Zerion. And Zerion is a product which is your kind of homepage for Metaverse. We are like showing all your positions across different chains, across different protocols. So we started as like simple DeFi token tracker, but now we like support pretty much anything out there, including your NFT collections. And like last year, we were like pushing a lot, trying to make NFT support also as good as we can. So I believe like right now we're like one of the best places to like actually view your own NFT collection, also track your friends, track some celebrities, track some influencers, just add their addresses and see like what kind of NFTs they're collecting. We're also trying to make it more interactive. We're like sending you some like push notifications when someone on your follow list is buying something, so you can kind of track that. We also have some sweet widgets where you can just like use your NFT, like let's say as a clock face on your Apple Watch and things like that. So we are like pretty much excited a lot about the space, and I guess that's why we're here to talk about NFTs as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. And we keep going down the line.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Casmir. I am a blockchain engineer and a rapper. I invented the first generative sneaker NFT project on Ethereum called SneakerCred in 2020. Jimmy was vouching for it. This predates Nike. My patent predates Nike. All of my prior work predates Nike. And I hold a patent for digital fashion on the blockchain. And this year I'm presenting a project I launched on Scale called TrapChain. And it's basically a music distribution service for indie trappers, indie reggaeton artists, indie Afrobeat artists. So we're like reaching the part of the world that's normally blanked out on everybody's maps. So yeah, we launched on Scale in 2021. And yeah, just happy to be on this panel with such dope folks. What's up, Jimmy, Eve?
Awesome. Thank you, Cash. And we'll keep going down.
Hey everybody, my name is Jonathan Victor. I work at Protocol Labs. I lead BD work across IPFS and Filecoin. So really just in the decentralized storage space and making sure content doesn't disappear, obviously a crucial component for NFTs.
Awesome, thank you very much. So we have avid collectors and builders. We have folks that make sure that we can actually see the data that we are collecting. We have super creative builders in the space who are first to the trends, and those are making sure that the data is actually available for these projects. So thank you so much to everyone here for what you're building. So now we're going to get a little out of maybe what you're doing individually and hopefully into what you're hearing from your community. So we're going to start here actually at the data availability side of things. Is there anything specifically that you're hearing from community members, whether it's developers, builders, hopefully some builders in the space since we're at a hackathon? When it comes to data availability, choosing what data availability platform to use, Are there any? Is there any alpha there? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the things that have been coming up the most is as NFTs have broken much more mainstream, especially in the last year, is really just the creativity of what do people want NFTs to actually represent. And so when we start thinking about NFTs as digital objects, not necessarily just images by themselves, you start seeing things like AR and VR assets, videos, like things that are heavier and harder to store directly on chain. And so especially for those sorts of things, it requires then thinking through how do you create like a verifiable chain of trust so that you make sure that content doesn't disappear. And so in our ecosystem, for folks who aren't familiar, IPFS is one protocol. IPFS is not a blockchain by itself, but it allows you to store and retrieve content based on a verifiable fingerprint of the content itself. And especially for NFTs, that can be powerful to make sure that your NFT is linking to some specific asset, regardless of where it is. But it also gives you the power to store it in as many different places as you want, whether that's on your local computer, whether it's on a cloud server, whether it's on decentralized storage networks. IPFS is just this global addressing layer, which allows you to future-proof the existence and the ability to serve that content from even if you migrate to different storage layers in the future. And then Filecoin just as a complement to that to say, how do you enable like large-scale storage and do it for super cheap with really strong guarantees? Those are sort of the themes that we're seeing. And especially with gaming, this has been the most important thing, and around performance and how you can actually use IPFS and its like CIDs to better like hack performance to be able to stream things and give like a Web 2 experience while also having it be available over decentralized networks.
Okay, so from your community specifically, the ability to use these Web 3 assets but provide Web 2 experiences has been like what the community has been really looking for from what you're able to offer.
Yeah, and I would say like, so because we build like storage protocols, a lot of the people that are in our community are the developers, the builders, the people who are enabling other creators to come into the space. And so especially with gaming, the things that we've been looking at are just trying to say, how do we actually take this to like much more immersive experiences, things that hopefully resemble like games that you normally would buy for like your Xbox or PlayStation, things like that. And so I think that requires then engineering things at a scale, which honestly for Web3 is still pushing boundaries. When we're thinking about NFTs and like what is the speed of delivery, when we're talking about even for the mints, how do we get the cost as low as possible in order to be able to say we have 1 billion game objects that are all NFTs? It really changes sort of like the dynamics there.
Makes sense. So I want to skip over to Alex now, if possible. To speak about now, you have, I'm sure that as NFTs have become more mainstream, your communities that you're involved with have gotten much larger. And they, as you were saying, John, they expect a Web 2 experience, even if you're displaying Web 3 assets across multiple chains, DeFi assets, farms, and whatever else. Has there been a big pain point with interfacing with the community and what they've wanted? Is there something that you could snap your fingers today and solve for the community with dashboard display? What would that be for the community?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's definitely lots of demand from people who just want to have simple tools where they can just like see their collections, see like other people's collections as well, and we are just like trying to be one of those. And I guess like the biggest pain that I can think of when it comes to that is actually discovery plus like some sort of rating systems, because that's been like super hard for most of the people who try to get involved into like NFTs, like just to understand what is out there. Like obviously everyone knows there are like lots of scam projects that obviously you don't want people to buy those. And like just like the information is super scattered. Like you need to be like on 10 different Discord channels. You need to like be on Twitter 24/7, just like trying to understand what's going on. And just like to understand like if actually what you are buying, is it like, I mean, I'm not talking if it's going to be worthless or not, like that can happen even with legit collections, but at least like to know that it's not some complete scam or whatever, just like that discovery plus like rating problem, I think is where like interfaces like us are pretty well positioned to solve that, to just like help users to navigate the space, just like help them to find the right information, find them to like evaluate like what they're gonna purchase. And I guess things like that are like super painful right now, and hopefully they can be resolved in some near future.
Makes a lot of sense. So if you're hacking this weekend, you heard it here first. So one of the largest pain points is discovery of NFTs as well on various blockchains. So hopefully we can get some more hackers working on that. So going over to Casmir, would love to hear, as a builder in the space who's probably interfacing with different types of file storage, different types of data availability layers, different dashboards, and we're going to go over soon to the collector side. But as you interface with your community, you're building on Scale. It's an EVM compatible blockchain, from what I understand, but you might not be interfacing with as many tools that are available to certain other platforms. So how has that been when interfacing with your community, building on Scale?
A lot of what we have to do is actually build for our market because on 360 NFT we mint MP4s, and on most wallets they don't display MP4s as we found. So when we did our drops, like it became very apparent we had to create our own wallet that was like a MP4 player. So like that's what we're doing in development. And another thing that really kind of like sticks out is our approach to music NFTs. Like we do token curated playlists. So it's like essentially you can go and like, post up your music, like simple dashboard. You can do upload, file upload. You can upload as many different media types as possible. Like if you want to do JPEGs or GIFs or MP4s. Ultimately, that has to be like going through the mixer mastering process and the metadata specific to what we're doing to deliver.
If you don't mind me asking, do you already have a data availability protocol that you're using, that you've chosen for your platform, or?
I'm down to check out. I mean, ultimately, whatever we can do to like make the experience as close to what users are dealing with now with Web 2, like with YouTube Music, Spotify, stuff like that. Even in Web 3 space, like, Audius is on Ethereum and stuff like that. So, I mean, we look to be competitive and also be like integrating as far as like making sure that folks can get the experience that they're expecting to
basically,
receive.
whatever does the job for the community the most efficiently, which hopefully should be the answer. So Jimmy, really want to hear from you as a collector, someone who's probably collecting NFTs that have a variety of different data availability backgrounds. And I really want to go to the next question with you. And I really want to dig into like what makes a good NFT. I know we talked about this before, but it is a question that a lot of, we hear about NFTs this week, and every single day, all the time. Everyone who knows how to code anything is trying to build an NFT platform. There's different blockchains to build on. There's different data. There's so much to talk about, but also as a collector now, there's even more. So I'd like to hear from you on that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot that goes into what makes a good NFT. The first thing that comes to mind when you ask me that is like the technical specs of an NFT, is some of which we're talking about here, like having the data stored somewhere that's trustless, decentralized, distributed, combination of those things. IPFS is a great starting point for that fingerprint. And then my company, what we do generally is we'll either store the metadata directly on the Ethereum blockchain as efficiently as possible, and for larger files, we'll actually use IPFS and then pin the data to Arweave, which is basically storing it for 200 years of availability. So the stuff is then, and that's a blockchain in itself. So for me, a good NFT is entirely on chain. One of the mainstream arguments that we hear right now that's out there is like, why am I paying for a URL? And that's a valid concern that I had 4 years ago when I started collecting CryptoKitties. They didn't use IPFS, and most of the information about the CryptoKitties is served directly on their website. So I set out with Avastars, my project, to make sure that this stuff was available on the chain as well. Like for Avastars, we actually did provide a URL to our website, but you could reconstruct the entirety of what's provided in that URL directly from the chain. These days, ourselves and some other NFT creators are actually finding ways to replace that URL with in our case, I think a base 32 or base 64 code that can actually render in real time based off of the data an output that replaces the need for that token URI to go outside of the blockchain. So for me, a good NFT is entirely on chain and trustless, but that doesn't. There's a lot more that goes into that. A good NFT has characteristics beyond that. Like the reason that you want this information on chain and trustless is so that you can interact with it in a composable way. We haven't seen too much cross-project composability come online yet with NFTs, but if you imagine that the information is trustless and available, then our systems that can interact with it, you don't need the trust of trusting a corporation and what's behind that URL. You could take, for example, to use my own project as an example, Avastars, the traits are stored on chain, and you could take those traits and go create a new NFT because you hold this. A project could say, okay, you have these 12 traits in an Avastar. We're going to use those traits to create this new NFT. And through the blockchain, you can actually prove then the trustless nature of how that was created because you own a previous NFT. That might not be a great example, but if you imagine like...
It makes a lot of sense though, because I mean, you were even talking just now about having NFTs to get into restaurants, for example.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my opinion, that's a great example of how you need to have some sort of available data. Some part of that needs to be on chain, or else people are going to be either eating for free.
Let me do a specific example there, right?
Okay.
Like, let's say, I don't know what the exact specs are, but let's say once a month you can go to that restaurant and eat. Well, people can lease or lend these NFTs as well, but if they've already eaten that month, if they've already used it that month, you would want that to be recorded on chain so that you know if it's available or not to be used.
So I think that's really important as well, because most people, I mean, I'm running a couple of nodes at home, but most people are not running their own nodes, their own IPFS nodes, their own layer 1 nodes, or layer 2, wherever their NFT may live. So then it becomes important for dashboards to ensure that this data is shown. So I'd love to hear from Alex now and kind of dig deeper into, first of all, maybe we can get some MP4 stuff going on Zerion, which would be great. But when it comes to usability of NFTs, are there any ways that you're thinking about, like, can we not just display the data and not just provide discoverability, but we can use them for watch interfaces, which is super cool. Is there going to be ways eventually to be able to use your NFTs through this dashboard, this one location where you can see all your DeFi protocol assets, all your yield farming assets, and all your NFTs in one spot?
Yeah, sure. So there are like kind of a few questions at the same time. I'll
quite
just
a few,
start one by one.
I'm curious.
Well, I guess like when it comes to like different formats of data, like MP4s, etc., I think that's pretty exciting. And then all just comes down to how it can be stored, and that's like pretty challenging because like especially like right now, lots of generative NFTs are super popular, or like even NFTs like evolve over time, like getting some attributes in the future. So like people are trying to experiment with like some kind of evolving NFTs, and obviously it's not just like a static image that you can store in IPFS and then surf forever, like for the next 100 years, but it's some dynamic content that you are trying to incorporate into that like one NFT, and then it just becomes a lot more technically challenging to store such information like somewhere like where it's like still available and like truly decentralized and not just like served from like some centralized server, what happens pretty often these days. And I guess there's just like a lot of like technical challenges to be solved there. And I guess when it comes to like this kind of utility that you were like asking me like in the next question, I think like honestly I feel like your NFT collection can just like eventually become your sort of like identity, because like lots of people like these like POAPs that you go to different events, you just like collect them. They kind of prove that you've been like in the space in a while, attended like some DEF CON 2017, whatever. So that like digital asset that you have, it's not just some random JPEG, but it's also like part of your like identity, that like kind of your future like metaverse passport, whatever. And I think like lots of the things are gonna become more and more useful. And also like you can just like look at the collection of a person, and based on that you can like already come to certain like conclusions. And I can imagine people building like some credit scores maybe, or like things like that, just purely looking at the NFTs that people hold and using that as their like some sort of like virtual identity.
I love that you went there, so I'm going to have to pose another question about, I'm going to skip over a question I had, but about like spam NFTs. So for example, as we go to different blockchains, we're in this, in my opinion, a multi-chain present. The bridges might not be perfect, but many of us here probably use multiple different blockchains. I collect NFTs at least on Ethereum and a few other blockchains, and a lot of those blockchains might have fees low enough where you might receive lots of spam, and it might be a dashboard might be a great place to potentially allow some of that social scoring to happen, because you can hopefully flag down a lot of that spam and have it not even show on a platform. So is spam something you're looking at already, to just have like an algorithm or some way the community might be able to like? You're the expert, so I want to just get that in there real quick.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a really good question because like spam indeed is a very big problem. Like you're trying to buy some NFT and then you receive 5 more from some random project that you don't know about. And I guess like for us, which are like somewhat centralized dashboards, like with like the team behind, I think it's a very fine line where like we obviously don't want to display all the spam NFTs to people, but at the same time, we don't want to censor that. So I personally believe like that the only way to go there is to actually build some community kind of ratings, and that's what I was talking about like a little earlier. So we need to allow users to rate that, allow people to build sort of like rating systems, and it should be like, I don't know, like it should be somewhat automated, but at the same time, it's very important to make sure that we as a company don't really play an active role in that, because if we do that, then it can very easily become censorship, which we definitely want to avoid. So it's like a very fine line between like censoring, but at the same time filtering out like some spam assets.
Who decides what is spam at the end of the day, I suppose? So I'll have a question for anybody here to answer. But in this multi-chain present, hopefully we, again, have many developers in the room who are hacking away at projects now. And I mean, on these boards, you could see many different blockchains to choose from. Many are EVM compatible, so you can fork away your favorite NFT platform and start deploying. Many are not EVM compatible, but I mean, most chains these days you can build NFTs on, you can plug into IPFS on, or Arweave, or use Filecoin services. So is there any like best practices or first thoughts when a project or developer or artist is thinking about like, how do I get started? Maybe we can go to Jimmy at the end, maybe as a collector, and then I'd love to hear from Cash as a project builder.
Getting started as a collector?
Yeah, like there's so many chains.
It's become more daunting.
How do you?
It was easier when I started collecting because there was like CryptoKitties and CryptoPunks, so it's like pick your poison. Now I am in awe of the collectors and their ability to uncover new projects and keep up with everything because it's absolutely bonkers. I rely on, I advocate for finding your mastermind group, and a mastermind group's like a group of like, let's say like 10 to 15 individuals that are all like together and communicating around a topic like NFTs, but we're all like forging our own paths and figuring out what's important to us, and then we share the most critical information back into the groups, and we learn together through that process. So a lot of times... That
makes a lot of sense. I'm going to have to... I would really want to hear from Cash on the exact same topic.
Yeah. So I was just going to like jump on Jimmy's bandwagon because he was one of the first collectors for Sneaker Cred. Like when we launched Sneaker Cred, it was basically an idea I had that what if you can take the sneakers out of NBA 2K and be able to like make those as NFTs? So I thought that was pretty executable from a smart contract standpoint, and from there I just like started gathering other folks who were technical, and like we would go to hackathons and hack, and then we would build different pieces. Some pieces are still in development, like some AR components.
Okay, so
and like
lots of stuff to keep building on. So join community groups to help you learn about what's going on, and hack away and learn from the developers in the community.
Yeah.
So we have some time for some questions. So if anyone does have any questions, I guess the mic is down there. If you have any questions for any of these, okay, we have one in the front. Thank you.
Are there any good newsletters or something for people who love NFTs but hate Discord and like get overwhelmed and immediately quit?
Okay, I mean, we can get the answer right here. I mean, if someone has the answer on the mic.
Let's decentralize the answer here. Who's reading all the NFT newsletters?
I don't want to sue, but Nameless, so we have like the name drop newsletter, and also we have our own NFT economist who is preparing Metanomics, which is like what is happening in the NFT space, really dissected from an economical point of view.
Okay, so Nameless is where we go for not having to be in 1,000 Discords.
For two different types of information.
Awesome, lots of information there. Any other questions? One there in the middle, thank you.
So I have a friend who works for a pretty well-known symphony, and they've been hit pretty hard by the pandemic. And I was telling about the conference I'm going to. He said, "Oh, what's that?" And so we started talking, and then we started talking about their fundraising, obviously. And I said, "Well, maybe you could take some of your recorded performances and mint these into NFTs." And he's like, "Well, we went through that, and then I didn't know where to send them." I'm a noob to the space. Where can someone go that isn't a programmer, not Web3 in depth, and start minting some intellectual property that they have?
360nft.io.
There you go, shameless plug, love it.
Shilling.
I mean, they don't make good NFTs, but the easiest way probably to get started is just on OpenSea. Just go and create a storefront and get started there and experiment there. Yeah. You're not going to really get on-chain storage. They can provide you with a IPFS and things like that, like later down the line. You can get started basically for free. There's a variety of different minting options out there, but I would say like OpenSea is probably the best place to get started for somebody that's brand new and has no idea what's going on. Oh yeah, so like what I'm encouraging your folks would end up minting on a OpenSea shared storefront contract, and the token itself is an empty vessel. You can't even tell like where and it's all like on their own database instead of stored. So it would just be a first foray into it. We're building an API-based solution for developers to be able to mint NFTs. I know Manifold XYZ has a contract that you can deploy and look into, and I assume they're at least going to use IPFS, if not even some stronger stuff. But there are a variety of things. It's just, first people need to understand what an NFT is and the power of it and everything else, and then they can start to worry a little bit. Like if they're just dabbling and getting started, they don't have to go full hardcore. They can just like prove out that it's going to be a good use case for what they're trying to do first, and not spend a lot of money trying to prove that out.
Maybe just to add on there, if you do it on OpenSea, after you mint, so it'll normally just do like the centralized URL, there's like a freeze metadata button that you can push, and that'll push it to like IPFS and Filecoin.
All right, so we have time for one more question.
More, awesome. Any more questions from the group? So NFTs is, oh, there we go, awesome.
Yeah, do you have any recommendations for on-chain or next best options for storage of large file solutions, like 3D files, larger videos, etc., for assets?
Yeah, what we do is we hash it on IPFS, and then we pin it to Arweave. It's Arweave. It's a fairly inexpensive permanent storage solution. So that's basically the approach we take. And I don't think there's necessarily a hard cap limit on the file size there. We've dealt with some pretty large files. The other thing I would point out, though, is if you're going to store big files, I would treat this as a backup and not as a way to serve that information to your customers. You're going to want to have some like sort of CDN or something in place to serve the media on your website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for all the questions and for coming out. And hopefully you learned a little more about how NFTs can be used as building blocks and some best practices when building.
All right.